Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Sports Podcast presented by the CollingsThodeNetwork. I'm Curtis Collings with my host,
Nolan Thode.
with our first video podcast for you guys. We are here in Nolan's room for now. This is a temporary setup, but we'll see what the set looks like going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the evolution of our set will, from what this is right now, just recording in my my room essentially. I think we'll upgrade from this, and we got LeBron up there in the top right from what you guys can see. You can see kind of a little bit of LeBron, so some sports, but we're definitely gonna have more of a The Sports Podcast kind of backdrop, and have all that coming on the way. But as we grow the podcast and as we grow our company, we're gonna see these minor tweaks and changes, and it's you gotta start somewhere. So here we are.
Yeah, it's the first of many. First of many, I'd like to say.
Oh yeah.
So today, just the kind of feel and the topics that we'll talk about is just the NFL. It's the only thing really to go over, as our hockey and basketball are in midweeks, and no major baseball news has happened other than Jose Abreu signing with the Astros.
Yeah.
So the rich get richer, as you said to me.
Mm-hmm.
I hate this.
With Verlander leaving, I mean, I feel like he could definitely come back at this point, but
I read a thing.
They did have a bit of money, and bringing in a guy like Jose Abreu, their offense, I wouldn't say was their weak point, but they have great pitching. They're known for that, and now their offense becomes, as you were saying, they lose guys and they seem to be able to find a way to replace them quite easily.
Yeah, it's just literally just what I was talking about last week. It's BS, and everything. It's like Yuli Gurriel might not be back, but he was 35, 36 anyways. He's on the decline, and he was facing a lot of injury struggles. Exactly. And so they pick up a former MVP, and so the talks with Verlander are that there are talks, but he hasn't returned the message back to the Astros.
Yeah, I
think that's what I read.
Typically, the way it seems to be with veterans in free agency is they like to take their time. So
yeah,
I feel
that's
like
a good point.
He's gonna field all the offers he's gonna get, and he's gonna make the best decision. He's not just mid-career making a decision based off of where he wants to play, where he wants to win. Now there's decisions going, factors. He's got a wife and potentially family coming on the way. Where is he going to want to retire?
However many years left, exactly.
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors going into Verlander's decision. But as of now, the first major signing, I guess, is Abreu to the Astros.
Yeah, and I can't think of any other signings that have happened yet. So that'd be it for baseball. Nothing much to talk about for hockey and basketball right now. That'll be there this week. Hopefully, a second episode will come out for you for those sports. But right now, we got the football, and we had a big Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
So
American Thanksgiving. So
comes around.
Us in Canada, we love the random, day worth of football on a random Thursday.
It's not even a holiday for us.
Classic Jay Onright from TSN saying, there's like an old clip he's saying, or as we in Canada like to call American Thanksgiving, Thursday. So just no complaints though. I gotta watch my Bills play. I guess they were the first game in the slate, and
Bills beat the Lions.
We can jump right into that. So it was a 28-25 game. It came down to a winning field goal by Tyler Bass. Thank God he made it. And
that would have been embarrassing.
It was a relatively close game. I think the Bills were underperforming, and not that the Lions were overperforming or anything like that, but I felt like, I was going to say to you, and we're watching with my girlfriend Sarah, shout out, on the couch. We were watching on Thursday, and I was going to say to you guys, but I didn't want to say anything because typically I don't like making comments while watching my team because I'm scared it's going to drink something or make it go one way, but it felt like, at least on the broadcast, all the momentum was swinging the Lions' way. But it was still a close game, or the Bills were still even up. So I think, some people like to make a bigger deal of this game. The Lions were on a 3-game win streak. They just beat the, Giants, who were 7-2 at the time. So I feel like a lot of people are looking at this more negatively than they should for the Bills. A big thing that I wrote down was the Bills escape despite deflation. You could see on the sideline in that second half, when it looked like it was a very realistic possibility that the Bills were going to walk out of that stadium without the win, the team kind of just beat down on themselves and, really relied on their leadership group. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stepped up big. The defense had a great game as well. But it really took a lot out of them to face that, and to be able to come out of it with the win, I'd say is a good victory. And, there's I think Sean Payton, he was on Colin Coward a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about how, it's wins like these where, you can learn lessons from them, even though they weren't like the greatest of wins.
Yeah,
like when you're a really good team, you can have these kind of learning moments and still escape with the win on your record. I think to look at this heading into the end of the season, the Bills are 8-3, set up to go to the playoffs. I think it's moments like these that are going to define them, build character, and kind of moments to look back on to kind of motivate themselves to keep pushing.
Yeah, the biggest question I have from what I've written down is the run game for the Bills good enough or consistent enough for them to be the championship caliber team that they think they are? Because it's like we saw it in a game like that where they relied very heavily on their leadership group and Diggs and Allen, as you said. But imagine having a guy that could just churn his legs and constantly move, how much that would boost the spirits of everyone on the Bills. I think that's the number one thing that they're missing.
I went to the game in Detroit, not the Thanksgiving game, but the Bills game versus Cleveland, and James Cook stepped up, had a huge game, and that really was an X factor in us having that victory. So definitely, still Nyheim Hines. He's been only using
Cook can be that guy.
Nyheim Hines has been only used in special teams so far, being acquired at the deadline. Great punt returner, great kick returner, so I like him in that position, but I would like to see him utilized a little more on the offense.
Plays, more screens.
But yeah, Singletary had an okay game, but yeah, I do think that not necessarily an elite run game, but a consistent run game is important for the Bills.
Yeah, I think Bills should prioritize a very consistent power rusher, unless James Hook can be the guy they want him to, which I'm not saying they can't.
Von Miller injured in the game.
Yeah,
was not a ACL tear, but it was a knee that he had previously injured. So no new news other than that.
Yeah, scary nonetheless, but yeah.
Hopefully, he doesn't have to miss the rest of the season. Bills fans, we're getting flashbacks last year. This game was Trey White's first game back in a while, I believe.
Was it his first game of the season?
I think so. Yeah. And to lose a guy like Von Miller, we're getting flashbacks of losing, Trey White going into the playoffs last year. That definitely had an impact on us, not being able to beat the Chiefs and overcome the hump, because I think, say what you will, but maybe with a healthy Trey White last offseason, the Bills beat the Chiefs, beat the Bengals.
Yeah, just to beat that Chiefs team, you have to be fully healthy, I feel like, so...
So, not much more to say on that game.
Who knows what could have happened?
Amon-Ra, St. Brown had a good game. Jamal Williams had a good game. Swift had a couple big plays. Jared Goff looked a little comfortable. He's settling in pretty good in Detroit there, I find. I'm interested to see, is Jared Goff still the quarterback when, this team turns into a competitive team?
Well, I just what I've written down is I think they're just a few steps away from being a serious playoff team. I don't see why Jared Goff can't be that guy. He led the Rams to a playoff or a Super Bowl appearance. So it's he's consistent enough to be a Matthew Stafford, a Kirk Cousins type, where Kirk Cousins and the Vikings are 9-2. So that's nothing against Jared Goff. I just see that's where his skill range is. A Joe Flacco type from and if he can have one of those incredible playoff runs, I think the Lions are legitimately a few steps away, especially on defense, from being that team.
Just minimizing mistakes and stuff like that. Give your defense a chance to, do their thing and, craft a couple scoring drives, and that's all it really takes to win in the NFL. So we'll see with the Lions. I think this offseason will be a big one for them. I think, the last few years it's kind of been okay, no expectations really for the team, but I think
a new young player.
With a good offseason and the decline of the Green Bay Packers as we're seeing,
loving
the NFC North is the Vikings are a really solid team, but I believe the NFC North is a little more open for the new great team in that division to step up. I think the Packers might have their heyday down. Might be a little bit over, but
I don't know. We could see. I'm dying to see Jordan Love actually get some play. That's all I want to see now.
Well, he played on Sunday.
He played a bit, threw a touchdown pass to Christian Watson, who continues to be excellent. But last thing I want to say about the Lions is that they are top 5 in points for in the NFC. They're 4th, and they're also top 5 for points against, which they are 2nd. So, and they have a point differential of -35. I think if they could just bolster that defense a bit and just keep this offensive core together, We're 2 years away from, maybe even a year away from the Lions being a legit playoff team.
Yeah, and especially with the NFC, I think the AFC, there's going to be 10 or so good teams fighting for those 7 spots, but when you look at the NFC, Commanders,
NFC's
Seahawks,
crazy.
Those kind of teams are able to squeak in.
When you look at the playoffs versus the bubble for the NFC, it is crazy where it's just like, yeah, it goes the top teams, and then it goes, the bubble would be the 6 and 5 Seahawks, and then the Falcons and the Lions are your 9 and 10 seeds right now in the NFC. It is very top heavy right now. Cardinals are ass. I don't get that. That confuses me. I mean, I guess their defense wasn't all that, and they've been missing their 2 receivers, but they're both back. They're both healthy.
I think Cliff Kingsbury's
he's
done.
Yeah, he's got to be done. This team's 4-8 with the talent it has.
I'm not sure if they'll let him play out the season or what, but we'll see. The next game though on
that was a 4
Thanksgiving was the highest viewership game in the regular season in NFL history. 43 million viewers, I believe.
Shout out Fox Sports.
Was the number that tuned in to the Cowboys and Giants. A great rivalry on Thanksgiving. It's not very surprising that, that game turned in that many viewers. It was a solid game. The biggest highlight for me was Ezekiel Elliott had a huge game. He had 16 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown.
This was after I thought that he might have been,
done?
Done,
yeah. I mean, Tony Pollard definitely looked like he was stepping up into that lead back role, but I believe this Cowboys team is the best when, Zeke is playing great, because then there's not as much on Dak's shoulders. He only has to make a play here or there, and then Tony Pollard can be used as that kind of utility guy, which
he was excellent as on Thursday. So,
and he is that guy where, maybe you don't use him as much in the first half. That's where you lean on Zeke, and then the second half when everybody's tired and you have a fresh Tony Pollard, he can crack off for a 60+ yard play.
It's actually this is just a side note. This is what I thought the Vikings would be like with Dalvin Cook and Madison, but right now it looks like the Cowboys are doing that perfectly.
Cook's able to do it all, but
he is exactly that. That's a good
I would like to see them
Vikings
use Madison more, but we'll see.
That's just a sidetrack though.
But yeah, I mean, it was a solid game. The Cowboys D kind of shut down Saquon Barkley.
Cowboys D looks
2 straight losses
good
for these Giants. I posed a question to Curtis last night when we were talking about the success of the New Jersey Devils. A little over under win total. We'll get to that when we talk about hockey next.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like another team that plays in New Jersey, similar, the Giants. Do you think was the start of the season maybe a little bit of a fluke? Now sitting at 7-4, 2 straight losses. Would you be surprised if the Giants end up finishing the season 9-8? Kind of.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I would still bet on the over.
Yeah,
I'd still bet on them to squeak out 3 more wins. Their defense hasn't been as good as it's been in their last 4 weeks. They've lost 3 of their last 4 weeks. It's been very bad for them recently.
And playing in the division that they're in,
the toughest.
They're gonna have hard matchups. So I think.
Yeah, I'd say that's the toughest.
I still think they can cling on to a wild card spot, but I think it's I think they're out of the race in terms of winning the NFC East at this point.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's between Dallas and the Philadelphia. So
Dalton Schultz had 2 receiving touchdowns in the game.
I'd missed that completely. But wow. But
I think,
yeah.
Well, he's interesting enough about Dalton Schultz, and I only know this really because I have him in a fantasy league. With Cooper Rush, he did miss some time, but with Cooper Rush, he was rarely getting targeted.
Yeah, I remember Hendershot got more targets than him in certain games.
Hendershot with a touchdown in this game. Shout out the rookie. But yeah, Dalton Schultz and Dak, they seem to have, that chemistry that he doesn't seem to have with anyone else, and 2 touchdowns. He seems to be Dak's favorite red zone target. CeeDee Lamb did have a great game as well.
Yeah, big yards.
Yeah, so this Cowboys team, if you add an OBJ...
Oh, man.
It could be an interesting
This
team.
is what I wrote from it. It's just Giants falling off is what I wrote. They've lost 3 of the last 4, and they don't really have the consistency. Their roster doesn't have the consistency of a team that I think can come back from this.
Yeah,
I think
bringing OBJ in would be huge for them.
It
Everybody
would
would like to see the reunion,
but I think
and I believe Saquon's really good. I just think with the New York Giants, if you go up against the top teams, and I feel like a lot of the top teams in the NFL have really good defensive lines, and I feel like when you're going to be relying on Daniel Jones and the receiving core of the New York Giants to win you games, I feel like they just don't stack up with the league's best, and they
don't inspire confidence.
No.
But my other note from that game was, are the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders like we see the Bills?
Mm-hmm.
I think they are now. I think they've cemented themselves in the top tier teams.
Mm-hmm. I think last year, a lot of people look at them and they're like, oh, well, they got our hopes up again and they lost in the first round. But, that 49ers team was a few plays away from making the Super Bowl. Honestly, they beat the Packers, the 1 seed. So I think it was a little bit luck of the draw in terms of, a negative thing for the Cowboys. I think getting the 49ers last year in the playoffs was not good for them when the 49ers were riding hot. But this Cowboys team, I could definitely see them making somewhat of a push, at least winning a playoff game this year. But we'll see, as things shape up, they're probably going to have to, face a tough team since the Eagles 2 games ahead of them for that division lead.
They need a statement win.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see what the Cowboys can craft up in these last few weeks, but for sure a playoff team, for sure a top contender in that NFC. I think I don't know. I'm really excited to see what the Super Bowl is this year.
Yeah, same. It feels like it's as wide open as it's ever been.
Mm-hmm. I think we could have a really interesting matchup, and there's so many different pieces of that puzzle that you could put together and kind of make sense of it. Just a lot of teams in each of the conferences that have the pieces to go all the way. Speaking of 2 of those teams that, maybe not 2 of those teams.
I would cool it on the second team, but
I'm going to backpedal on the Patriots. I'm not a big Patriots believer.
For sure, one of those teams.
I mean, they were close to, beating the Vikings in this one. They played up until the fourth quarter. What happened was they stopped them on third down, and the Vikings had to punt.
Yep.
And a roughing the punter penalty led to the game-winning drive from the Vikings. Wow. So an error that is a little uncommon from a Patriots team led by Bill Belichick. Mac Jones with a crazy game. He was the leading passer on the week with he was 28 for 39, 382 passing yards and 2 total passing touchdowns.
Huge week for Mac Jones.
But not enough to get past Kirk Cousins, who was 30 for 37 with 299 and 3 touchdowns himself. So, I mean, it was a really good game. The Patriots front 7 stopped Dalvin Cook. He had like 22 attempts with like 40 yards, something like that.
That's crazy.
Not very good.
Patriots defense is looking really good.
Run game. Yeah, I mean, well, and when I preface this game saying potentially 2 contenders, I think just with an elite defense and Bill Belichick as your coach, this Patriots team has the potential to win games in the playoffs. We'll see. Another team that got a pretty bad luck of the draw with the Bills in the first round last year.
Yeah. That was.
I don't know. We'll see. The Patriots, a couple straight losses. They have the Bills on Thursday night this week. So I'm hoping that the Bills can take that game. But I don't know. So what do you have to say on the Vikings sitting at 9-2?
Vikings sitting on 9-2 is exciting. It's kind of what I thought was going to happen, in all honesty. I said that they were going to be the top team in this division, and they've exceeded my expectations. I didn't think they'd be 9-2 at this point. I didn't think they'd be rivaling the Eagles for the best record in the NFL at this point. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how good they've been, but it's also weird because their point differential is horrible, and it's +5, and it was only like +2 going into that. No, it was what was it going into that game? Nothing.
They won by 7.
So
they would have had a negative point differential sitting at 8-2.
At 8-2, and now they're +5.
A blowout to the Cowboys.
Yeah,
that definitely
hurts.
Yeah. And then,
but it's still like, it's crazy that they're
that is a crazy stat
in the position that they're in right now, and I don't think it's a knock against them as much as like it looks on the surface. I still trust them, but I trust the Cowboys more at this point. Mm-hmm. But still very talented looking team, and they're sitting right where I thought they would be.
Yeah. I mean, this was, even though it was 33-26, I feel like the defense of this game made it feel like a playoff kind of atmosphere.
It was tight.
It was a good game and a really good primetime game for Thanksgiving. 3 great games to have. Kirk Cousins, not known for showing up on primetime. He was able to do that there. I think any questions surrounding this Vikings team, even though he's kind of proven people wrong this season, are going to be focused around Kirk Cousins and, is he that guy to lead this team? And we'll see.
That was all my questions off season, was just, is Kirk Cousins good enough for this unit? And we'll see. With the addition of TJ Hawkinson, it's even more of a test of, can Kirk Cousins make the right decisions?
Yeah, I think with, Thielen, he's getting up there in age, obviously not able to do the same stuff he was able to do, but the emergence of Justin Jefferson, doesn't really hurt them that much with Thielen on the decline.
And KJ Osborne's even played a big role.
KJ Osborne can make a big play here and there. And then TJ Hawkinson, I think, is that consistent, target. I feel like Kirk Cousins is going to lean on him a lot. We've seen that since he's come over from Detroit, and I just like the way this Vikings team's shaping up. That's it for Thursday.
It was a good Thanksgiving. Two teams won with 28 points.
Yeah.
But a good Thursday, and then Sunday wasn't bad. Good slate of games.
Sunday was interesting in terms of the matchups.
No one went too crazy either, player wise.
I feel like just looking at the slate of games on Sunday, when you look at matchups, there wasn't any I need to watch that game type of games. The first one we can get into, because I don't think we're going to have much to talk about it, is your Carolina Panthers.
We won! We won a game.
23
4-8 now.
Winning 23-10 over the Denver Broncos.
Broncos suck.
We were very wrong on the Broncos.
I think everyone was. I could fully admit it. I was completely wrong. I thought the Broncos were going to be good. They can't run an offensive play to save their lives. Mm-hmm. But their defense is outstanding. I think best in the league for points allowed. Yes. Yep. Oh, no.
One of them.
The 49ers are better.
And they have the top red zone defense and the bottom red zone offense. I remember hearing that on the stream. It's an interesting stat. I feel like I'm not so mad at myself for being wrong about this Broncos team, just because,
on paper.
When you look at a guy like Drew Lock, you think that he's the problem, but I think there was a lot more dysfunctionality in this offense than just Drew Lock. More than Russell Wilson can save. The defense is elite. We knew that. But, Nathaniel Hackett having a very bad debut as
he's
head
having
coach.
a tough time figuring out their offense.
Mm-hmm. So I still think, I don't think everybody gets fired this year. I think they'll give them a chance rolling into next year. I don't know. I just think it's a very tough season, a lost season for the Broncos. Now, they've cut Gordon. Javonte Williams has been out for a long time, and he's not coming back this season. And then they traded Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, it's
just a lost season for the Broncos. They don't even have their own pick. But on the other side of things, Sam Darnold comes in.
Yeah, that's the question I have for you. Is that just the Panthers' crowded QB room? Sam Darnold comes in and puts on the best performance of any Panthers quarterback so far this year.
Mm-hmm. He only,
he didn't have to do too much.
It
doesn't take much
over
to be the best
175 rushing yards.
Yeah, as a team.
Mm-hmm. Deonta Foreman had
a big game.
24 carries, 113 yards. DJ Moore was Darnold's favorite target. 4 receptions, 103 yards, and a touchdown.
Finally getting his looks.
Yeah.
I think Darnold came in and won that spot. Mm-hmm. And this is something I've been saying a lot off podcast, just to Nolan, is that a lot of people bag on Darnold a lot, but from the eye test and from just experiencing Panthers football, he's been the best quarterback out of the group that we have, out of the 4. Baker was abysmal. And Darnold last year, when we started 3-0, was moving the ball well with his legs, not really throwing it super well, but he was moving it well with his legs. He's a really diet version of a dual threat quarterback, and I think that Baker, PJ can't bring that. So I think roll with Sam Darnold going forward. If Matt Corral can be healthy, throw him in for a start. Screw it, because it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, you say it doesn't matter anymore, but we're
4-8, and there's a chance that we leapfrog up there, but
yeah,
I wouldn't get too excited.
5-6 Buccaneers leading the division there. So the Panthers.
If we beat the Falcons 2 weeks ago,
you did.
Oh no, we lost some. We lost.
I think it was
one
the
week.
Saints.
Well, it was Saints
essentially.
week, yeah. It was it was the Saints. Where if we beat the Saints, we would have leapfrogged into second in the division or tied for first.
It's a weird division.
Bad division.
Yeah, it's every few years there appears to be a division where a team doesn't even need to have a winning record to make the playoffs, which is crazy.
Which is what it looks like right now.
And so I mean, Brian Burns, shout out, huge defensive game, 10 points for the Broncos. Massive. Broncos suck. Panthers are okay. A little Super Bowl 50 rematch with a different result this time.
It's still an exciting game, but
as a Panthers,
more so just exciting just because that's my team.
They have the Seahawks next week. The Panthers.
Next week.
So
that'll be an actual test.
I
think that'll be a bigger test for the Seahawks than it'll be for the Panthers. Because if the Seahawks choke this, then I think we can officially stop considering them as contenders or playoff contenders. Because they're outside looking in right now with like the Falcons and Lions breathing down their necks. It's like if they can't compete with the Commanders, who are 7-5, and like stay relevant with them, it's like if you lose to the Panthers, you're not gonna stay relevant with them.
I think next week's a big game, even though it's not gonna get a lot of media attention, but it's really
an important game for the Seahawks.
It's really it's important for both teams too. I think Darnold's gonna get a second straight start, and if he's able to win that game, it sparks a little bit of, can they make the playoffs?
It sparks a little bit of hope at least, which is something that Carolina hasn't had.
But we'll see. Speaking of teams in that division, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they lost, so now they're 5-6. Jacoby Brissett's
Browns beats them.
Jacoby Brissett in his last start. Deshaun will be starting next week versus the Texans. That has been confirmed. Brissett did a fairly good job, I would say, as the starter of this team.
Yeah, you'd hope for a better record than 4-7 with the schedule they had, but he wasn't horrible. Like, he himself wasn't horrible. I just think they could have come out with more wins.
Yeah, and the Browns fandom really loves them. On all the posts I've seen of Jacoby Brissett, he was emotional leaving the field on Sunday. All the comments saying, Brissett being the Cleveland Browns' most likable QB in the last, 25 years. And
not hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, not a very tough list to go up against, but I think, he's given them at least a chance in the second half of the season with Deshaun coming back to make a push.
I'm honestly really excited to see Deshaun play for the Browns because this is the first time that a bona fide good quarterback is going to play for the Browns.
Yeah,
because Baker was good, but he was a rookie when he came in and he was learning the league with the Browns. This is a guy that's a bona fide star.
And he was very poor in the preseason, and I see people bring up that as a point, as if it's a knock on Deshaun Watson. He hasn't played in a while. He's been practicing with the team for the last couple of weeks. I think he had to be cleared to practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Deshaun Watson, I think in an actual game and a perfect starter game against his former team in the Texans.
The 1-9-1 Texans.
Yeah. So I think just give him that game to get under his feet, and what should be a win for the Browns, sitting at 5-7, after that game with Deshaun, it could heat up for a nice little race there.
Really
in the AFC.
exciting.
Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Rashad White, however you want to say it.
One of them is right.
Stepped up in Leonard Fournette's absence. Over 100 total yards. He had 64 rushing yards. 64 rushing yards, 45 receiving yards for 109 total. I think what in the early season when the Buccaneers were struggling, and not to say that they're out of that spell, but they didn't really have any run game identity. Fournette was good for a goal line carry and stuff like that.
They had the lowest rushing yards per game.
And Tom Brady was being required to do a little bit too much for what he's able to do at this age. So I think with him stepping up, it's very big for the Buccaneers. They had this game kind of. It was a David Njoku one-handed grab that put that game to OT. So, without that, the Buccaneers probably win this game and are looking at 6-5, and we're kind of thinking about them a little differently. So I like to not, think too much about, one play to be different. I feel like the Buccaneers still put themselves in a good chance to win this game.
Because you could go any play back throughout the entire game, and that could have changed it. You can't just call one-handed catch the entire game.
But, Nick Chubb did his thing.
Nick Chubb plays great. He plays
26
great every
carries,
single week.
116 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Did his thing, and the Browns were able to come out on top.
Yeah, Not much else to say about that game other than the Bucks losing doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things just because of how bad that division is. Where it's like, I feel like if the Bucks were in any other division with the roster they have and they lose this game, world's exploding. But right now it's like
still in division lead,
right
still
now
in the playoffs.
exactly division lead playoffs. No one really cares, or at least I've not read anything about pandemonium in Tampa Bay and Tom Brady's angry that they have a losing record. It's like, no, they've just soldiered on because they kind of know they'll take they'll take the division.
Yeah, I think if they do everything right, not even do everything right.
What a weird situation. They could mess up a whole bunch, and just as long as they win 4 more games, I think they take the division.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think sitting at 9-8, that'll be better than
plenty good.
The Falcons, the Saints, and the Panthers. Saints very disappointing.
So disappointing.
Going on to the next game that I have on the schedule here, you could call it the game of the week, just in terms of how it ended. But 28-27, the Jaguars
take it.
Beat the Ravens. I think this was a great early season or early career moment for Trevor Lawrence. He had a fantastic game, 29 for 37, 321 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Fumbled, I think.
He did have a fumble,
but who cares? No interception. That's what matters.
But the Ravens D is one that is a really solid one.
No one's really going off against them.
Yeah, for him to not get the ball picked off is pretty big. Good ball protection other than the fumble, obviously, and able to lead that game-winning drive with the Zay Jones 2-point conversion. Zay Jones with a crazy game as well.
145 yards.
Which was the most of any receiver or any player in terms of receiving yards on the week. No touchdown for him, but the big 2-point conversion that ultimately won them the game. And then Justin Tucker, 67 yards, was it?
Yep, 67, just short.
Which,
while we were watching the game, it was dead on, and a lot of people thought it was going to go in. I said that if it was like indoor, like he did against the Lions in Ford Field when he hit the 67 yarder and it doinked in, I was thinking like if this wasn't an outdoor game, he might have hit that.
Yeah,
but they lose.
And then, the Jacksonville mascot, he was a little bit of a interesting point to come from that game.
I can put him up here.
Yeah, we both got a kick out of that.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, Jackson DeVille, I think his name is the mascot. Even though I don't watch a lot of Jags games, I knew immediately seeing him in the Speedo that's not what he's supposed to look like. So yeah, the Ravens, I don't know. They're a weird team. They're sitting at 7-4, so a winning record, obviously. Lamar Jackson,
I think they're still in the division lead.
They're still in the division lead, tied with the Bengals now.
Yeah, tied.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think they're gonna hold the division lead for very long. I know you're high on the Bengals, so I'll let you go more in that. But
I mean, yeah. So great game-winning drive. I think everybody loves to see it from Trevor Lawrence. We talked after his big game against the Chargers where he outdueled Justin Herbert and had a 3-touchdown game, no interceptions.
That was also a very hype game.
We talked after that about people calling him a bust in the offseason, and
it's still like every time I hear it, it's just the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, people are too quick to make opinions in sports. I mean, it's a part of it. It creates discussion. It's maybe fun to look at Trevor Lawrence and think he's not what he was supposed to be, but looking at him and Jaguars 4-7, so not going to make the playoffs this year.
Well, actually, probably not going to make the playoffs, but
there's a chance.
There's always a chance if they go on a little run. They had a horrible losing streak, but I don't know.
I don't see them as a playoff team.
I don't see them as a playoff.
ETN left the game.
They're tight. It's a little too tight.
I don't see them as a playoff team, but it's moments like these, the win over Lamar, the win over Herbert, that give you enough confidence to know that Trevor Lawrence is going to be that guy for the Jaguars.
And it doesn't look like ETN is too hurt, so
he should play next week.
And it's just the only reason I react to the Jaguars being a potential playoff team is because they're tied for the 10th seed right now.
Yeah.
So it depends on what the 7-5 Commanders and the 6-5 Seahawks and the 5-7 Falcons do, really. But the reason why, so the Jaguars at 4-7 have the same record as a different team we'll talk about later. But I just want to hear your thoughts. I just want to do a little discussion about this. The Jaguars and the Raiders have the exact same record right now, and I have more optimism and hope and faith in the Jaguars finishing with a better record than them than the year.
Yeah.
Is that crazy? Am I crazy for thinking that?
I mean, I'll need to take a look at the schedules, but
Of course.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think you're crazy for believing that. I think the Raiders at this point, we'll get into them later. They had a great game in terms of, excitement. There still was some error, with the team.
4 p.m.
But yeah,
I believe in the Jaguars more than the Raiders going forward.
Yeah, and I wouldn't attest to you.
We'll see how that ages.
In that. Another game that we can skim over briefly just because who would have thought any different result than the Dolphins beating the Texans?
Sorry, Texans and Dolphins fans, but who really cares?
I think Tua was benched after going up. Not benched in the sense of he was bad, but
he was told to take a seat, pal.
He took a seat after they were up 30-0. Davis Mills was benched this game. Brandon Allen played okay in the second half. He was able to put up 15 points.
15 points is not horrible for this
15 unanswered.
Squad. 15 also without Dameon Pierce really doing any of it, as he had 5 carries for 8 yards or 8 carries 5 yards. Something horrible. It was really bad. My notes just say Dameon Pierce sucks.
Yeah. Well,
no, it just says Dameon Pierce was bad. He doesn't suck. I love him. He's on my fantasy. He's on my Dynasty fantasy team. Love Dameon Pierce. He's been excellent this year, but he was bad, and this is not good for his rookie of the year race.
Chances. Yeah. And then the Texans. Nobody would have expected a different result. Dolphins win. Dolphins at 8-3 now.
Dolphins looking
in the division lead. They look solid. Texans next week will be their highest rated game of the season in terms of viewership, at least. I think people are going to want to see Browns versus Texans.
Yeah, that's gonna be hype
with Deshaun's return.
I really want the Texans.
This Texans team looks like the team that's going to draft whoever they want with the number 1 pick.
Do you think it's C.J. Stroud?
I think Stroud or Bryce Young. We'll see who they lean on more. I don't know. I think it's either or. I think those are the top 2 picks in terms of quarterback position. I think that's where they're going to go because, there was maybe going into the season a little bit of, can Davis Mills, maybe not be that guy that's going to be an elite superstar quarterback, but can he at least be like their starting quarterback so that they don't need to draft QB next year? But no. I think, QB is the direction they're going to go. So, whoever they take, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, I'm excited to see that person in a Texans uniform just because, it was nice to see Deshaun there for a bit just because it was like a nice QB in the Texans uniform. It just, I don't know.
I like it when the Texans are a good team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just like a random team. I feel like when they're good, it's kind of fun, but when they're irrelevant, nobody looks twice at the Texans. Houston Texans, bad season. Their defense has some fun pieces on it. Stingley.
Yeah, they will be exciting.
But
but they're not yet.
Mm-hmm. I think they're when we talk about the Detroit Lions being a few pieces away, I think the Texans are a lot more than a few pieces away.
Yeah, the Texans are at the point that the Lions were at last year.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't disagree with that. Going into another game that, was an interesting one. It was Trevor Siemian versus Mike White. The Jets keep rolling. 7-4.
My only note for this one is just Mike White W because that was just an absolute Mike White.
Yeah.
W.
22 for 28, 315 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Garrett Wilson.
He looked good.
Garrett Wilson with 5 receptions, 95
excellent.
yards and 2 touchdowns himself. It was big. It was a big game for the Jets. It was the Bears, but
the Jets needed this.
It was the Justin
Hall
Fields-less Bears. Breece Hall is done.
He's done, so they needed a game like this just to prove that they can still be that team.
And then so Mike White's going to remain the starter until Zach Wilson gains his confidence back, is what the coach was saying.
Confidence back? I guess that's what the coach was saying. For me, I feel like, and what I heard online was that was just he needs to earn the locker room's respect back. Yeah. Which, could just be a code word for confidence.
Yeah. So Zach Wilson, the number 1 pick last year. Things aren't looking good for him, but the Jets sitting at 7-4. Mike White giving them the best chance to win.
This roster is built so well where if you throw any old mediocre to good QB in there,
I think the difference between Mike White and Zach Wilson is, I guess Mike White's just a little more confident.
Mike White has huge confidence. Mike White is one of my favorite quarterbacks just because of his confidence. There was an interview last year where it was they were talking about who they someone asked him who he thought the best quarterback out of his draft class was, and he immediately answered himself, which I just think is hilarious.
Yeah. You got to love that confidence.
He's that guy.
31-10 final score. The Bears, Chase Claypool big catch set up a touchdown, I
But
believe.
he only had 2 catches on the day, but 52 yards.
Yeah, so now with Mooney out for the season, that's another talking point of the Bears. They're sitting at 3-9. Obviously, no one expected much from them this year. But I think potentially it could be a good thing. Obviously, not that Mooney got hurt, but allowing Claypool to develop a little bit more chemistry with Justin Fields when he does come back. I don't think Trevor Siemian did a lot to keep that job.
No, I can't.
We were very close to seeing Nathan Peterman in action. Thank God we didn't have to see that.
I'm disappointed personally. I wanted to see the shit show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bills fan, so very
good memories.
Very not fan of Nathan Peterman. Going on to a game that I actually, involves a quarterback that I love, Joe Burrow.
Joey B.
And the Bengals leading his team without Joe Mixon this week, and then Jamar Chase still, injured with that hip injury.
This week?
There was rumors he was going to play against the Titans.
Oh, okay.
And then he didn't. And then, so I think we'll see him shortly in action, but the Bengals sitting at 7-4, tied with the Ravens for their division lead. I think this was a huge win for them over the Titans.
Yeah.
The Titans offense, the Bengals D stepped up big.
Huge. No big rushing gains for anyone.
Other than the 75-yard, play that led to Treylon Burks' first career touchdown.
Congrats.
Which was a fumble recovery in the end zone from Derrick Henry.
What a weird way to get your first career touchdown.
Yeah.
And it's not because he's going to count a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. So
God, the Titans offense for a 7-4 team, it's such a struggle to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and that's a team where their point differential is garbage. It's not good. It wasn't -3. Theirs was +4. It's just such a struggle to watch this team, and it's another team. It's, I guess, both the Souths are horrible because they could lose out. Like, they could pretty much lose every game for the rest of the year, and I still have confidence in them to make the playoffs. As crazy as that sounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad that division is.
Yeah. I mean, I could see the Colts winning 3 games. I think the Titans are going to have to win 8 or 9 games to win that division.
Yeah, but, still, that division's so garbage.
Mm-hmm.
It's so bad.
It gets me excited when you look at the division on paper with the Titans, Colts, Jaguars, and Texans. The Titans and Colts have kind of shared the division lead the last few years, but, nothing crazy on their teams right now in terms of competitiveness, nothing crazy in terms of looking towards the future. But when you do look at exciting futures, you do look at the Jaguars. So
and the Texans even.
I would love, even as early as next year, for that to be the Jaguars division.
I think next year it is the Jaguars.
Yeah?
Yep. I think they leapfrog the Titans, unless the Titans grab a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, Malik Willis.
True. They'd grab
is
him
the
last
guy
year.
of the future.
So it depends. I guess that all depends on how much Malik Willis steps up next season.
But yeah, I mean, last week when we talked about mid-season award winners, I had Joe Burrow as kind of like a dark horse MVP candidate. And I'm kind of like, ever since I made that point, obviously, I'm going to
you're gonna defend it.
I'm going to defend it just because it's something I've said on the internet. But, I'm kind of starting to believe in it a little bit more. When you look at this game especially, the Titans were 7-3 on the road. You don't have Joe Mixon or Jamar Chase, arguably your 2 best weapons that they have on that offense. T. Higgins did step up, however.
Huge game for T.
7 receptions, 114 yards, and a touchdown. But yeah, Joe did just enough to, have this team win that game. And I think, he's the heart and soul of this team. I think he's
for sure
totally put a total 180 on the culture in Cincinnati. Super Bowl appearance last year. Things are exciting for the Bengals. But yeah, now sitting at 7-4, tied for the division lead with the Ravens. I don't know.
I think they take the division. I see no reason why they don't take the division.
If I had to bet on it today, I'd probably say the Bengals win that division.
Which, preseason rankings, that's exactly where I had them. I like them taking that division too. I really like them. I see them finishing over 12 wins. Mm-hmm. Honestly. I'd need to look at the roster or the rest of the schedule, of course, but I still like...
Well, they play the Chiefs next week, so that'll be a really good game. And they only can afford one more loss if they're looking for 12 wins.
They would have to, beat the Chiefs, but they've done it before. They did in the playoffs last year. If they get Jamar Chase back, then hey.
So Chiefs next week.
Let's go through.
Wow.
And
now looking at it, the Cincinnati Bengals have a very tough rest of season schedule. Chiefs, and then Browns with Deshaun, Buccaneers.
Not an easy matchup.
Buccaneers on the road. Brady versus Burrow. That's going to have a lot of hype around it.
Yeah.
Patriots on the road.
Tough.
Bills and then Ravens.
Wow. That's going to be a real test for them.
There's no gimme. There isn't a gimme game.
I take back my 12-win prediction.
And, well,
that's a hard schedule.
Another thing. I think, I don't see a lot of people talking about Burrow MVP just because Patrick Mahomes is having a great season. However, I feel like if the Bengals are able to beat the Chiefs next week, that's going to give, Burrow beats Mahomes. That's going to give him some MVP, chatter at least. And then, Browns, Bucks, Patriots, Bills, Ravens. If he's able to go, 4-1 in that stretch, and I don't know. I think the pieces are there on the table for Burrow to win the NFL MVP this year. That's all I'll say.
We'll see.
Going on to a game that, I didn't see too much of just because, 19-13 is not the craziest game. It was in the rain. The Commanders, though, come out with the win.
7-5.
7-5 Commanders.
It's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. Brian Robinson, he's arrived for me at least. Great story. Obviously not great for him to have gotten shot, but being able to recover from that and play this season and be as good as he's been has been a really good story.
Depending on the next few weeks, he could catapult himself into Comeback Player of the Year.
Comeback Player of the Year, and
it might be more of a next year award, but
no, even if we could see it. He had 18 carries in this game, plus 2 receptions. He had 125 total yards and a receiving touchdown. So a big part in that game. He had 125 total yards. I think Taylor Heineke had like 140 passing yards, something like that. So
yeah, Heineke's not the stats guy. He's the winner.
Mm-hmm. Heineke is a game manager, at its core. He's just gonna do just enough to win his team the game, hold the ball. Big loss for the Falcons here. If they were able to come out on top, they would have been in the division lead.
Yeah, they would have been tied with the.
No, at 6-6, they would have been ahead of the Bucks.
Oh wow!
So to lose to the Commanders,
that is crazy. Yeah, the Bucks would have been like half a game back.
Tough loss for them. It's also great. Like this Falcons team has 5 wins, and Pitts hasn't broken out.
Nope.
Mariota's their quarterback.
Drake London.
Cordell Patterson. Drake London's been okay. And Cordell Patterson missed time. So to consider the Falcons,
crazy where they are.
The Falcons sitting at 5-7 right now.
Missing Ridley all year and then traded him
to the Jaguars.
Hype for next year. But it's crazy. It's crazy that the Falcons in the position they are.
If the Falcons, I'm reading it right here, 5-7 in my eyes. It does make sense just because I've seen the season unfold, but. If I was also looking at this and the record said 3-9, I would be like, okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, not much to say on that game other than Brian Robinson having a really good game. I'm happy to be the guy who owns him in Dynasty. I think he's taken over as that lead role. He played it for the first time fully. They played against the Giants, I want to say, and he did have the lead role, more carries, but this game he was clearly the top back.
Antonio Gibson last game he took over as the primary, and then this game he really was the primary.
Mm-hmm. And he looked good, and he's good enough for that offense to do just enough to be that gritty team that squeaks into the playoffs.
Yeah, my notes literally it just says Washington keeps winning. Because it doesn't make sense, but they keep winning.
Yeah.
And Heineke is Terry McLaurin's best quarterback.
Yeah.
First, statistically, he hasn't put up the same numbers with any other quarterback. I guess Kyle Allen would have been the other one, the former Panthers starting quarterback. But it's just it wasn't working great with Wentz, and then Heineke comes in and he's had multiple 100 receiving yard games.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, when you look at Taylor Heineke, all he really needs is, good running backs to hand the ball off to, which they have, and then, an elite number 1 receiver, which he has in Terry McLaurin.
And they even have Curtis Samuel, who is a very good number 2
He's a good utility
too.
Guy, guys like Dotson.
Dotson as well, who is rookie this year, who started the year off great and has been struggling with hamstring injuries. I'm pretty sure it's hamstring.
And then Logan Thomas back, the tight end.
Yeah. I really like this
Chase
Commanders
Young back.
Offense. I like the Commanders team going forward. It's just if they didn't play in the toughest division in football, I'd like them a lot more.
Mm-hmm. They can win games, when they put up 19 points, holding the other team to 13. I feel like this is this is a really elite defense. With Chase Young back, this is what we're seeing from the Commanders. They're going to be a tough team to play against, tough team to beat, especially if you can't get up early against them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so solid win for the Commanders.
Huge win for the Commanders.
Another game that ended in a 2-point conversion for the win.
Oh my goodness!
The Los Angeles Chargers beating the Arizona Cardinals. Justin Herbert had a really good game. He had
had a good game too.
47 passing attempts for Justin Herbert. He was 35 of 47, 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he was really good. This Chargers team sitting at 6-5, they needed this win.
They had to win this one because now they're tied with the Pats for the 8th seed outside of the playoffs. So it's tight, and they had to win that.
And the Cardinals also had to win that too. I think
Cardinals,
if they were 5-7 right now, maybe a chance they can still make a push. But sitting at 4-8,
tied with the Panthers, it's not a good look.
It's really going to be tough. And then we touched on it earlier. Cliff Kingsbury, failed experiment.
He's gotta go.
Maybe a product of Patrick Mahomes there at Texas Tech.
Looks like it.
He could get the Matt Ruley where fired from the NFL, goes straight back to college. I wouldn't be surprised just because he does have a good college mind, but that doesn't always translate well to the NFL.
We've seen firsthand. I think the Cardinals, with the talent group they have, they could have made a Super Bowl appearance by now if they had the right coaching staff.
Yeah. I mean, losing, like you said, Marquise Brown missed a lot of time. He was back in this game. He was solid. And then D-Hop started the year on the suspension. D-Hop with a crazy random second down or first down catch that Curtis and I both oohed and awed at. Just looked casual.
One hand.
Grabbed it like a almond out of midair, as I said in real time, because a football looks like a big almond when you really think about it. Especially when it's spinning in the air and you can't see the laces.
Just a crazy catch, though. Like, right out of his hands. It just, like, whoosh.
Yeah.
It's crazy. He's been so good. He is the best spectacular catcher in the league for doing it consistently. Mm-hmm. It's crazy catch. Really, it's really, I'm happy to have him back because as more of a casual NFL fan, and especially in seasons prior, he's one of the guys that I've always known about, no matter what. Yeah. So it's good to have him back.
He's a fun player to watch, and this Cardinals team was not that very fun without D-Hop. Yeah. Even if they're winning or losing games, it's nice to see at least, a couple D-Hop catches, big plays. He had a touchdown in this game.
Kyler's good for a screw it. D-Hop's down there at least once a game.
Mm-hmm. Kyler had a good game, as you mentioned. He had the rushing touchdown. Just unlucky for them to, give up the loss at the end. It was like kind of like the Buccaneers and the Browns game. And also the Ravens game, just like a few plays away from being able to come out with the win, but they aren't able to do so. And now at 4-8, I'm excited to see. They're one of those teams with, what are they gonna do going into the next season? I think Cliff Kingsbury's gone. I'm really excited to see who they bring in as that coach. If they can find the right guy, this Cardinals team.
Yeah, I still have faith in this Cardinals team, even though they look bad.
Yeah, I think. I think when you look at their record as 4-8, they're probably one of the better 4-8 teams in the league.
Yeah, them and the Panthers.
Yeah. Going into a game where one man kind of put the team on his back a little bit.
No one man should have all that power.
The Raiders take this one 40-34 in overtime over the Seahawks. Josh Jacobs with 33 plus carries. They fed him 229 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns,
87 game yard winner. Was it 87?
It was
80
something
plus
crazy
yarder.
like that. And then adding on 6 receptions for 74 receiving yards, 303 total yards. Really big game for Josh Jacobs. He was really the only thing that this Raiders team had going. This, we were watching the Red Zone stream. And every time there was a Raiders play, it was Jacobs.
It was always. He's been the number one underdog for fantasy football this year. Yeah. From where his ADP was versus how good he's been. Mm-hmm. Crazy. And then, it was, as you said, it was just basically this entire game was Josh Jacobs versus the Seahawks. Yeah. I felt like.
Yeah.
And then I'm starting to lose faith in the Seahawks as well. But this Raiders team should be better than what they are. So it's like it's hard to knock the Seahawks for losing to them.
Yeah.
But it's just like when a team loses to the Raiders, I look at them differently now.
Yeah,
because
it's a game they could have had as well.
Yeah.
Foster Moreau with the game-tying touchdown. Nice to get his feet in there. It was a good play by him. Good effort. But yeah, I think the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker was disappointing in this one.
Yeah,
it was just an all-around disappointing week for the rookie running backs other than Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
When you look at Pierce and Kenneth Walker. Sitting at 6-5, they still have a winning record. They're now, you said, outside of the playoffs.
Yeah, they have to win this next week.
Yeah, against the Panthers. It'll be a good game.
For the Seahawks.
So, yeah, I mean, other than Josh Jacobs in that game, even though it was high scoring, not like a ton of storylines coming from it.
No, it's not like Hard was really great.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Adams was. Just Jacobs was really the story coming out of this one.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're saying.
Yeah. The next game I have on here, the Chiefs and Rams.
That's also what I have. The Rams are done. I'm just going to jump right in.
Yeah.
The Rams are done, and what a sad season. Especially for me, this is another one, fully accept it. I was dead wrong on this Rams team.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see this coming. I think if Aaron Donald could have seen this coming, he would have chose to stay retired.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Do you think he retires now?
Yes. I thought he was going to retire anyways, but I think he's done. I wouldn't blame him for leaving mid-season if he just got injured or something and then left. It's just like... The Chiefs are good. I don't think there's much to talk about there.
I think what's interesting about this Rams team the
Rams are the story.
When you talk about disappointment and when you look at the camera and say this is a team we were dead wrong on.
I was dead wrong.
We're kind of both saying the Broncos earlier in the episode, and neither the Broncos or the Rams have their own first round pick this season.
That's sad.
That's
so sad.
I think the NFL now. We'll see what happens with the Browns with the amount of picks that they give up for Deshaun Watson. Yeah. But, when you look at the Rams were able to win the Super Bowl last year, so a lot of people think, I can give up my picks to get an elite quarterback.
I can give up my picks for a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm, and we can win a Super Bowl. And, yeah, sure, the Rams did win the Super Bowl last year. And that's a very good outcome to come from it. But now you look at the Rams only a season later, looking bad.
3-8 with no
don't have their
promise.
Picks. And then when you look at the Broncos, totally failed experiment. They didn't even get a playoff appearance out of it this year. And then the Chiefs, though, I think, Curtis's dad is a
huge Chiefs fan.
Huge Chiefs
Shout
fan.
out Dave Collings, #1 fan.
He said to you, though, we should be winning 40-10. I feel like, this Chiefs team didn't have to do too much to win this game.
Yeah, it looked like it. It looked like they played like they knew it.
Yeah, they kind of played down to the Rams a little bit, kind of keeping them in it even until the fourth quarter,
letting their rookie
Bryce Perkins
have some play and look a little exciting. Mm-hmm. I know I was into it.
And then a Mahomes interception straight to the Rams defender.
Could have been more to him.
I don't know. I think
critiquing him from behind the
because it's the Rams and because they didn't have their starting quarterback. I think whatever. It's you blow past it for the Chiefs, but I think your dad, was getting at the point that I feel like this Chiefs team just wasn't executing as well as you would imagine them to.
You'd hope they'd be.
So it's kind of one of those wins where you don't really gain much from it.
Yeah.
You more so lose stuff from it, but the Chiefs sitting at 9-2.
Win's a win, but I get what you mean.
They have the Seahawks and the Bengals. But those I believe are the only two teams with a winning record that they play the rest of the season. Sitting at 9-2, if they win out, they're the AFC's top seed. I would not be surprised to have them at that. But I think it was a bad week to have, a bit of a down week because maybe a little bit of momentum's lost on the Chiefs side, even though they did win the game, and going in to play a team in Cincinnati who's probably going to get Jamar Chase back.
I think the Chiefs momentum, I see what you're getting at. I think the Chiefs momentum totally depends on if Tony is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's no Tony next week, we might see a really deflated Chiefs team going into Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think right now the Chiefs win isn't that much of a concern, but I do believe if they lose to the Bengals, then we'll look at this game sort of as the starting point for a little bit of a rough patch, and they were close to losing to the Chargers last week as well. But yeah, the Chiefs sitting at 9-2, best record in the AFC. It's hard not to like their chances at still being the Chiefs. But
and then yeah, other than
the
what
game
I
of the
had to
week next
mention,
week, the game of the week next week for sure is the Chiefs versus the
oh,
Bengals.
it has to be. And then yeah, my only notes other than what I had to say is just Rams suck, Chiefs don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have very meh game.
Very meh.
Chiefs poised for AFC top seed. Yeah, I mean, it was a game that even as a Chiefs fan, I feel like I wouldn't be tuning into that much just because it's the Bryce Perkins show.
No Cup, no.
Yeah.
I think who's their tight end? Higbee. Higbee had no targets.
Mm-hmm.
No targets, no catches.
I think Allen Robinson got hurt.
Allen Robinson's now out for the rest of the season.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's confirmed?
That's confirmed. That came out I think yesterday.
Yeah.
So
and
no A-Rob rest
speaking
of the year,
of out for the season, Cup.
Yep, Cup now.
Whether or not he returns is going to depend on their record. And sitting at 3-8, I don't think.
With no Stafford.
Yeah,
it's just...
and then Stafford, you could see Stafford, Cup, and A-Rob shut down for the rest of the season. A lost season for the Rams. Very disappointing after winning the Super Bowl. The Detroit Lions are smiling from ear to ear, having their pick.
And Goff. Honestly.
Yeah. When next game was
another
kind of snooze fest.
Yeah.
13-0, the 49ers beat the Saints.
Saints
Juwan Jennings
to disappoint, but
Juwan Jennings with a nice little tip drill touchdown.
That was a very pretty one.
But other than that, not a lot of highlights.
Saints
did have fumble on the goal line. So that kind of could have made it a different game, but the 49ers, I believe they haven't given up a point in their last 4 games in the second half.
Wow. I
could be wrong.
Very impressive.
I think that was a graphic I saw on Instagram, so not
100%.
Yeah.
But that would be a crazy stat if true.
Yeah.
But yeah, no Saints fest.
It was just defensive football. The Saints have a good D as well.
Yeah, which is the only reason this thing stayed close.
Yeah. The Saints' leading rusher on the day was Andy Dalton.
What an embarrassing offensive performance for the Saints rushers.
Mm-hmm.
Kamara getting nothing.
Kamara able to do nothing. Neither was Mark Ingram.
I have no clue what the receivers did. Olave,
I think Olave was the lone bright spot. He had like 5 receptions, 62 yards, which isn't crazy,
that's a
but
great game for a rookie.
A solid game.
Solid rookie game for Andy Dalton throwing it to you.
But yeah,
in 2022.
this Saints team could obviously the Rams are an easy team to look at in terms of like how much they are versus their expectations to start the year.
How much they're underperforming.
But I feel like a lot of the people were high on the Saints this year.
I mean, we definitely both were. You have them in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I did just because, I don't know, I thought with the NFC South, and you would think, if you had told me the Bucs were 5-6, after week 12, I would have thought the Saints are leading the division at
7-5.
Yeah, exactly. But no, 4-8 for the Saints.
Yeah.
Do they go back to Jameis? I personally would if I was them.
I would prefer it. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why Jameis hasn't been back. I mean, he could obviously be injured.
No, he's healthy, and then the statement came out where Jameis was pissed because he didn't get his job back, even because he was coming back from injury, and he said a thing that
Mike
was like...
Mike Thomas out now for the season.
Yeah, it sucked. I don't know. The situation in New Orleans does not look
Cap
good.
hell does not happen that much in the NFL and the NBA versus the NHL. Like, the NHL, cap hell happens just because, bad. We have a hard cap, and it's nothing crazy, like... $80 to $85 million.
I think we're at over $88 million now. Mm-hmm. The Leafs have an $88 million payroll, but it's like the Leafs are right at the limit.
Mm-hmm. But when you look at the NFL, it's like, the teams have their money, but the Saints, they're one of those teams that is in cap hell, and yeah, just I don't know, disappointing. And they don't have their first round pick this season.
Another team
that belongs to the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Eagles have the Saints first. And they're 10-1.
And that was because I think the Saints trading up for Olave, which is okay.
That's fine. Then. You can forego a player this year. That's tough.
But still, the Philadelphia Eagles
could get a piece and a half with that.
And because I was watching a video on the Saints, and, when you're in cap hell, being able to get those rookies on their rookie deal that can perform, that's huge for your team, but they don't even have that luxury. That's
sad. And it's what we were talking about earlier with you think you can trade your picks. This is different, of course, to win a Super Bowl, but the Saints have been doing that for years beforehand, building around Drew Brees, and you think you could trade first-round picks, and now here we are.
Yeah.
And it's
a dangerous game to play just because, even with a good roster on paper, any given Sunday, you don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah. And then you got
Sunday
our
night game.
Primetime game.
which was I feel
think
closer
this
than
is
the
just,
score suggested.
But in my opinion, this was the nail in the coffin for the Packers.
Yeah,
they're done.
Yeah, and we talked about Bryce Love earlier, but yeah,
Jordan Love.
Yeah. Which did I say? Bryce Young?
Bryce, yeah, you mixed
Did
up.
I say Bryce Young?
You said Bryce Love.
Bryce Love, yeah. I mean, they could use a guy like him.
Hey, he stepped in.
But Jordan Love taking his, debut on the season, I believe. Maybe he played a few snaps earlier because of a Rodgers
one or
thumb.
two snaps.
But Rodgers has been dealing with a thumb injury. Jordan Love 6 for 9, 113 yards and a touchdown.
Not bad. He didn't look bad.
He did not look bad, and
I wouldn't mind seeing him get more reps.
Yeah, and when you look at this Packers team, it's like, Aaron Rodgers and the rookies, like. They're not enough for him. Whereas I feel like if you threw Jordan Love in there, it would just kind of like be like a fun young offense, as they're learning it together.
That was legitimately what I was just thinking about before we started recording. Is that people are really hating on this wide receiver group for the
Packers.
For the Packers, when it's like they have a guy in Allen Lazard who, when he does play in fantasy, he's been putting up 10 plus points per week, and then they have rookies in Watson and Dubes who have not been consistent, but when they do play healthy, they have had very good bright spots where Dubes was catching touchdowns at a regular pace to start the season, and now Watson's had 3 straight games where he's had a touchdown and he's using his speed more. And I honestly think that if they went into this season with Jordan Love and they traded away Aaron Rodgers, people wouldn't think that this is a bad wide receiver group at all. They'd say, it's a young wide receiver group.
Mm-hmm. I
think they get unnecessary hate. I think they're way more talented than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, Jordan Love had a game against the Chiefs last year. He didn't look crazy good, but he only had a few drives in the fourth quarter. But 6 for 9, 113 yards and a touchdown. He looked solid. Did they make the wrong choice in keeping Aaron Rodgers instead of Devontae Adams?
I say I agree with Lil Wayne. I agree with Lil Wayne.
Imagine
yes,
this
they
team
did.
with Love as the starting quarterback and Devontae Adams.
And a few.
I think they're probably better than 4-8.
Yeah, I'd say so. And honestly, they probably could have grabbed some more pieces on defense too, without Aaron Rodgers there.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. Lil Wayne thought Aaron Rodgers should have left, and I agree.
Yeah. Lil Wayne, the Packers fan. You gotta love
big cheesehead.
Almost random cheesehead. I mean,
but
unless he's from Wisconsin, which I doubt.
I don't think he is.
Yeah, but it's nice to see his dreads coming through the cheese helmet.
But yeah, I
Eagles
don't know.
10-1.
But the Eagles look great.
157 rushing yards for Hurts.
Man,
and 143 rushing yards for Sanders.
Hurts is my personal dark horse MVP, where he probably won't win it, but like at the start of the year, he was my number 3 to win it, and he's continued to be that guy for me. Where it's like in my heart, I really want him to win it, but he won't. It's gonna go to Mahomes, but we'll see.
I don't know. I think even ending the season at 15-1, 16-1. Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't bet on him winning it.
With only one loss, though, it's hard. If they have the best record in the NFL.
I know. I was just thinking like Cam Newton won it when they went 15-1.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but yeah, I think Mahomes.
I wouldn't bet on him winning it.
I'd say my leaderboard as of now goes Mahomes number 1, Hurts number 2, Burrow number 3.
I like that. I think that's a pretty good list.
And
I guess Lamar's kind of fallen out of that list.
And I'm sorry that I just threw out only quarterbacks, but quarterbacks win MVP. That's a known fact.
There's just been no outstanding enough offensive
even
player to warrant winning MVP over a quarterback.
Yeah, like in recent years, I can think of Derrick Henry's 2,000 rushing yard season. He maybe should have won MVP. When you look at most valuable player, but yeah,
he could have won it that year. And then it's like, I guess Cooper Kupp as well, having a touchdown every single game. Like that was like what he had 16 touchdowns last year. Like
Cooper Kupp was crazy last year as well.
Like could have been, but yeah, it's a quarterback award. And I don't know, this year has been weird. There's been no real outstanding player on a skill position. I wouldn't say anyone is head and shoulders above anyone else.
Yeah,
right
like when we talked about offensive player of the year last week or 2 weeks ago, I said Tyreek Hill, and he's been really good.
Receiving yards.
But even then, like I feel like the media attention and the hype that Tyreek Hill is getting right now is nothing compared to what Jonathan Taylor was getting last year. Derrick Henry,
huge attention.
Jonathan Taylor and Kupp both last year. Getting the confetti animation from Yahoo Fantasy. But yeah, I think it's a quarterback's award at this point. There's been a lot of people saying there should be separate awards, but I guess Offensive Player of the Year is kind of that.
Yeah, it's like
Josh Jacobs right now is the number one
quarterback in fantasy. I just sorted it quickly by fantasy scoring, and Josh Jacobs is in first, but only by 7 points.
We know that the NFL experts choosing the MVP award don't look at fantasy points. However, when we're trying to find who's having the best season, fantasy points.
I like fantasy points just because it puts a value of a player to a number. And while it's not 1-to-1 and there's so much more in between the numbers, just taking a quick objective look, fantasy points is a good way to quantify how good a receiver and a rusher and a tight end have been without looking into the nitty-gritty. But just like talking about tiers of players, no one is really ahead. Josh Jacobs 7 points ahead of Austin Eckler, who is 7 points ahead of Derrick Henry. It's like it's really tight, and no one's really running away with it this year. Like Offensive Player of the Year, I have no clue. I still think Tyreek Hill. I have no clue though. It could really go to anyone.
Comeback Player of the Year also Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, that's why I've written in my notes for Comeback Player of the Year. But we also have B-Rob. Who's coming in. He's been good.
And then the last game of Week 12 was the Monday night game where the Steelers won over the Colts.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Najee Harris got injured in that game. Benny Snell replaced him. 12 carries for 62 rushing yards and a touchdown.
Hey, that's a good game.
Not a single carry before this game. So
wow. What a debut.
Yeah. Well, he's had carries in the NFL this season.
Debut for this season. Season debut.
And Jonathan Taylor is back, I guess. 20 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. Exciting to see.
He's had a few games.
He won me, I think, 2 leagues.
He's had 3 straight weeks now, I think, with 80-plus rushing yards and a touchdown, which is what you need him to do. But a big loss for the Colts just because, you know,
they can't ride the momentum of winning last week, too.
4-7-1 is their record now, and the Steelers are not a good team. They should have won this one, I believe, at least.
You are underrating how bad the Steelers are. Minus 67-point differential, putting up the second lowest points in the AFC.
Oh, no, the Steelers are awful.
Steelers are horrible. But, like, if the Colts, Colts needed this win.
I don't think Kenny Pickett has thrown more than one touchdown pass in a game this season.
Has he thrown over 200 yards in a game this season? I don't think so either. I can pull it up.
I mean, well, I have it right here.
Oh, okay. Because it's like, I haven't seen a game where Pickett has thrown over 250 yards. I'll play it safe. Has he thrown over 250 yards? I say no.
Well, 174 on the game yesterday. Yeah, that's
what I saw. 174 with a touchdown.
32 rushing yards.
It's not horrible, but
not terrible. Deontay Johnson needs to get involved more. He did have 8 targets. Maybe it's a Pickett thing.
It's a Pickett thing. He doesn't throw him the ball. His route running is still crisp as ever. It's just he likes Pickens a lot. He targets Pickens.
Yeah, the Pickett to Pickens connection.
It's real.
It's real. It rolls off the tongue nicely, so I don't necessarily hate it. But Deontay Johnson, he's a player that I love, like, a million times more than I love the team he plays for.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if Deontay Johnson were to go to, like, maybe any other team in the NFL, I'd be like, I'm getting a jersey. Like, go Deontay Johnson. But right now, I'm not throwing on the Steelers jersey. Mike Tomlin on pace for his first losing season in history.
Yeah.
But,
which, as we said last
week. Who knows? 4-7. Can they go 5-1?
No.
No.
Official. No. But before the game started, I had a good feeling Steelers would win. Didn't bet on it, but they came away with it.
Just, one of those weird
feelings.
I could see it.
And then the other thing I want to talk about for this game was just a rookie coaching mistake from Jeff Saturday. Not calling any timeouts until 4th down. Just confusing. I don't understand it. I'm not an NFL coach. I've never been one. I don't get it personally. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the Seahawks game in Week 1 where
that was also
they kind of had poor clock management from a first-year coach. Maybe it's a learning curve, but I feel like knowing the timeouts I have left, at least as a viewer from home, like watching games on a game potentially tying drive, game-winning drive, like that's something that's like imprinted in my mind. I know how many timeouts my team has. I know how much time's on the clock.
Madden. Anyone who's played Madden knows that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they should. What they should do is they should give NFL coaches PlayStation remotes.
Yeah.
And just be able to touch the middle button, just to call a timeout.
And the refs
or
know.
just have like a one of those like
the prices or Jeopardy buzzer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of those things. But yeah, that's it for the games. It was a good week of NFL action.
I thoroughly enjoyed this Sunday. This was and Thursday as well for the Thanksgiving games.
Mm-hmm.
Great week for football. No one really, like, other than like Jacobs particularly went off, but like just overall a very solid week.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself watching. Just written here, I have 4 noteworthy divisions. The NFC South, the first one, we've talked about that, but the Bucs sitting at first at 5-6. Then the Falcons at 5-7, then the Panthers at 4-8, then the Saints at 4-8. So realistically, any team could win the division at this point. I do think the Bucs take it.
Oh yeah, the NFC South. Well, both the Souths are tight.
Yeah, and then the AFC East, the Dolphins sitting in first at 8-3, the Bills at 8-3. I think that division, even though the Jets are 7-4 and the Patriots are 6-5, I could be eating my words if the Bills lose to the Patriots on Thursday night, but I feel like that probably comes down to the next meeting between the Bills and the Dolphins. I'm not sure when it is, but I know they've only played once.
That'll be probably the most hyped game of the year.
Yeah. It'll be a good game. NFC East also decently close.
Yeah, both
Eagles
the
sitting
Easts,
in first.
Both the Easts and the Souths are close as well.
Yeah, both Easts all winning records.
I wonder how many times that's happened in NFL history. Like when we've gone to this point.
Like I the last time I can remember 4 teams, not even 4 teams. I'm just thinking of. I remember the year that the it wasn't the year where the Panthers were 15-1, but I remember one year the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons all made the playoffs, and I remember being like, 3 teams from one division.
Yeah.
But we could potentially see 4 teams from 2 collective divisions all make the playoffs, which would be insane. The NFC East is, maybe not a tight race for the top. I think the Eagles and Cowboys, it's between them. Eagles at 10-1, Cowboys at 8-3, but the Giants 7-4, Commanders at 7-5. I don't know. It's an interesting race. I think the interdivision games are going to be really good.
I think all of our interdivision games are going to be super hype moving forward. Like the way the league is shaped up, where it's like we have a lot of really tight divisions.
Mm-hmm. And then the last division that I had was noteworthy. The AFC East, the AFC North. Yeah. I don't know why I wrote East on my thing. That's one of the read out loud what you see. But the AFC North, I meant to say. Ravens sitting in first at 7-4. Bengals in second at 7-4.
Both with excellent point differentials.
And they play, when we went through it, the Bengals schedule, they play in week 18, the last week of the season.
That's intentional.
And
now,
then
and
also,
so hype.
Third place, Cleveland at 4-7.
Obviously
right now you're not looking at them as anything crazy, but they got Deshaun back, and we don't know how good this team is with Deshaun.
Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they make a playoff push.
Yeah.
Because
you also
who's
have the
in
Steelers.
seventh is the 7-4 Jets. So who's to say? And then 2 6-5 teams are behind them.
And then the Steelers at 4-7, the last team in the division. I don't think they're gonna make a playoff push.
No.
But this team could definitely play spoiler for some interdivisional games, because
some whack matchups.
Even with a bad roster, the Steelers are gonna show up. I feel like when they play against their division teams. Yeah. They beat the Bengals earlier in the year. I think they beat the Browns. I'm not too sure. But yeah. And then, I don't know.
I'm just going to go and say, it's Mike McDaniel, right? Coach of the Dolphins. He's coach of the year in my mind. He's won it.
Yeah.
I think just the way he's managing his roster, not only winning games, but winning games with new players and a new system, and through injuries and controversies and acquiring players, the ship has been so steady in Miami that at this point, I think if they come away with the division, I don't see how you don't give it to him.
If he wins the division, I say they win it.
I say he's it.
But I still think Brian Dable, coach of the Giants.
I don't know.
If the Giants
I'm
make the
starting
playoffs,
to see the Giants slip.
Yeah, I see them slipping as well. But if they're able to be a 10-win, 11-win team, I'd say it'd be hard not to give it to him.
I'm jumping off the sinking ship right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. It's, we got week 13, 14, 6 weeks left.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
6 weeks left in the season, so
fall. So
a lot still left to happen. We could see. I don't know. It's going to be a good finish to the NFL season.
I like having the extra week. I think it's good. I as a fan thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah. But when I look at the Baltimore-Cincinnati Week 18 game, the first season I ever tuned into the NFL, 20 or like regular season.
Yeah,
I'd obviously watched Super Bowls before that and playoff games, but I remember it was Week 17 and the Packers beat the Bears. Aaron Rodgers threw like a game-winning touchdown to Randall Cobb, and the Packers won the division in Week 17. And I remember that sold me into the NFL because I thought in every single Week 17 there was going to be like winning you're in scenarios, and there hasn't been as many of them as that I had hoped. But I think, with a lot of tight divisions, there are going to be some crucial Week 18 games.
This year we are going to for sure have a winning year in. I think we're going to see at least maybe 3. I think we could have 3 win-year-in games.
Yeah.
I think this could be one of the best Week 18s.
Yeah.
Just because of how
I think
close
Week
all
17 and Week 18 are going to be really, really good. And, usually those weeks are kind of, some teams have their seasons kind of wrapped up. Players kind of sit out, rest for the playoffs. But I feel like most teams are going to be pushing to the last, game of the season.
I think almost every single team has a reason to just keep pushing till the end of the year. Like when I go through these teams and I think who's really, really out of it, I think Rams, Bears, Steelers, Texans, and Broncos. Other than that, every other team can make a
Raiders.
run. Even then? Raiders could make a run. If the Raiders win 4 games, then they're in a certain hunt. I don't think they'll make it, but they'll be right there in the bubble. Where it's like, I don't think their season is over yet. Like, it's weird how many team seasons aren't over for the point we're at. I feel like there's more competitive teams than usual. And I love it. I think this has been a great year for football. Mm-hmm. And I'm very glad that it is the first year that I get to cover myself.
Yeah, no, it's been a good year to cover. Still lots of stuff to cover as the season comes to a close. Obviously, really excited for playoffs. Playoffs is going to be a thrill.
This is the most excited I've been for
NFL playoffs.
Yep, yeah, easily. Mm-hmm. It's the most into it I've ever been.
I think the NFL more than any other sport is like a nice storybook.
It is.
Whereas it's like right now we're kind of the big twist has just happened, and we're kind of seeing how we're gonna recover from it heading into the climax and conclusion of the book. But yeah, the NFL, it tells a good story, and following it from week 1 to the Super Bowl, you really feel connected with the league, and every game matters that much more when you only play once a week.
Absolutely. So yeah, now about do it. I have no more closing thoughts, so
yeah,
that's it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sports Podcast presented by CollingsThode Network.
We thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.